I'm guessing you're watching this video because you're thinking about relocating to the upstate. Well, you're in luck. This video is probably going to be one of the best videos we ever do on this channel. We're going to talk to the expert, Mike Cruz of Make Greenville Yours, someone who's done over 1,500 tours of people considering moving to Greenville. He knows all the things that makes Greenville special, and he knows exactly what people are looking for when they're thinking about relocating to the area. Hi, I'm Evan Whaley, your favorite Greenville realtor, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike now.
So here I am, under the pressure of being the guru for why people are coming to Greenville. Let me explain something to you first. I came into this completely by accident. I say accident. I'm a semi-retired pastor, so I believe it's by God's design. But some 8.5 years ago, I had an opportunity to meet a couple in downtown Greenville who were thinking about relocating here. And the gal had her mom with her from Miami, Florida, thinking about moving to Texas or Oregon. They saw Greenville on the internet and decided to check it out. And I told them I had some free time, so if they wanted to get in my full-size Tundra truck, I would show them Greenville. There they are, minding their own business, eating a wonderful steamed bagel sandwiches at Sully Steamers, where I go quite regularly, and Sully's a good friend of mine. I gave these folks an informal, impromptu tour. At the end of the tour, they realized that Greenville is a special place. And at the end of the tour, they said, you know, we started out with an interest in Greenville, now we love it. They moved to Greer 2 months later, became good friends of ours. And the mother, who had told me that her and her husband were thinking about moving to Beaufort, South Carolina, on the coast, decided this indeed was a place for them. They retired about 4 years ago and moved to Greenville. So I have realized that there was a need. People were being attracted to Greenville, but it's not the easiest area to fully appreciate. I arranged to have coffee with the mayor. I'd known him for a number of years, and I knew he might have interest in it because he's passionate about Greenville. He thought it was a great idea. That's how it started 8.5 years ago. And as Evan mentioned, I've given over 1,500 tours, and I've seen people from all over coming here for different reasons. And to me, it's been fascinating, having moved here in '86 from Philly with a wife and 4 children to go to seminary, not knowing anybody in Greenville. And back in '86, Greenville was not much to write home about. But I have seen the transformation up close and personal. So when I show off Greenville, it's passionate, it's personal. And you may not decide the same for you, but at least when you make a decision about moving to Greenville, you will be informed by the end of the tour. My experience has been with most of these tours, by the end of the time, people will just be shocked. There's far more to Greenville than they ever thought. They may come down having an idea about moving to one of the surrounding towns, but by the end of the tour, they'll say, I didn't know Malden had that potential. I didn't know Taylor's was like that, or Simpsonville, or Greer, or Travelers Rest. Whatever they knew or didn't know, by the end of the tour, it was clarified. And I've often had people at the end of the tour say to me, I wish I didn't have to go back home and pack. I just want to stay. Now see, that's my passion. It may not be yours, but I found that oftentimes by the end of the tour, you're going to share much of my passion because it will speak for itself. Two of the things that I hear most often is the friendliness and cleanliness of Greenville. They love the fact that people look each other in the eyes, smile, say good morning, how you doing, whatever. Oftentimes, these folks aren't used to that if they're coming from large cities. Greenville's a small city with big city resources. People are shocked to understand the population is just hovering close to 75,000. Yeah, it's a quaint town with a lot going on. I had a retired nurse a couple years ago who was going to take my tour, and I require a minimum of 2 people to do the tour. One person can do it, and they just pay the price of 2. But this gal called me because I was able to connect her with some other folks, and she was so glad. But the day before the tour, she said, Mike, I drove around on my own and I realized it's not for me. And I said, well, I understand that, but I also know you don't know what you're looking at. And we talked for a while, and she said, okay, you talked me into it. I'm going to take the tour. I said, I didn't mean to talk you into it, but I do think it would benefit you. So we took the tour several times throughout the tour. She'd say things like, I didn't know that. I didn't see that. I didn't realize that. A couple days after the tour, she called me to tell me she bought a townhouse in Travelers Rest. From one extreme to the other. And the only thing that was different was she got to know Greenville, which you can't know on your own. That's why I work with a lot of realtors. I tell realtors, let me do what I do best so you can do what you do best. I'll show off Greenville. You find the house. That's why I appreciate working with guys like Evan Whaley. They value what I do, and they know they didn't sign up to be a tour guide, and I didn't sign up to be a realtor. And so that works well together. And I do recommend that you try to schedule your tour as early in your stay here as possible, so you have the best perspective of what it means to live in Greenville before you start looking at specific houses with your realtor.
So Mike, why is it so important that someone does a tour with you before they start just going out with a real estate agent and looking at properties?
Well, a lot of times it can be a waste of time to look at a house when they don't know where they really want to live. And you don't want to move here and then find out that there are other areas around that might have had more interest for you if you had just known. So that's why I say to people, do the tour first so you can know the area before you look at a house, because then you will have a perspective through which to view the house.
Can you tell us a little bit about the differences of some of the towns? What makes, Simpsonville, Malden, Greenville, Travelers Rest, Greer, Taylor's, what makes them so unique and different from each other?
Well, it's an interesting question. I just gave a tour this morning, and a fellow on the tour asked me that exact question. One of the things I say is I know people who live in every town that love it for different reasons. Every town has its own personality, its own energy, its own vision. Some towns are a little further ahead than others in identifying themselves and reestablishing themselves. Malden is a town that's kind of been sleepy for a period of time. Now they're starting to kick it into gear. They have some plans that are starting to be obvious. Still ways to go. One of the biggest projects in the upstate of South Carolina is in Malden. It's the Bridgeway Station project, the first walkable urban community in the upstate. That's a big deal. Travelers Rest, you wouldn't have given that a second thought 20 years ago. It was out in the country. But now it's one of the upcoming areas, and people are really desiring to go to Travelers Rest. And part of the reason is the Swamp Rabbit Trail goes right through the heart of town. Greer, the same thing, redeveloping their downtown. They have the most structured downtown after Greenville. And every area that you go through, Simpsonville, very popular. People who live there love living there. There's a great sense of community. It's the furthest out from downtown Greenville, but even at that, 25 minutes on 385 North, and it dumps you right into downtown Greenville. So in all fairness, to represent every town, you'd have to go through it so that I could highlight the uniqueness of their personality, because you can't necessarily compare one for the other. I tell people that there's a symbiotic relationship with Greenville. They all do well when they all do well. So I don't think this competition. They all want each other to succeed, and each town has its farmers markets, festivals. Most of them have a YMCA, a senior center. And they're easy to navigate from one to the other. And people are shocked when they do the tour that you're never all that far from downtown Greenville, because the tour uses downtown Greenville as a hub, and it basically does a circle from Malden to Simpsonville through Greer, Taylor's, Travelers Rest, back to downtown Greenville.
Mike, when you think about all the tours that you've given, you've clearly learned a lot. You've talked to a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. What are some of the biggest reasons why people are gravitating towards Greenville and moving here?
Many people are pleased with the convenience of living in Greenville and the proximity to so many things to do within a few hours. We're 2.5 hours from Atlanta, Georgia, about an hour and 40 minutes from Charlotte, North Carolina. You're 2.5 hours from Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. You're a few hours from the Winston-Salem, North Carolina area. You're close to the mountains. You're 3 to 3.5 hours from Charleston on the coast. And I always tell people, make a distinction between places you want to visit and places you want to live. They're not the same thing. Sometimes people will vacation and they'll think, boy, when I retire, this is where I want to live. Well, think that through. That may not be what you want to do. And I've given tours to a lot of people that have done that very same thing. And over time, they realize, this isn't where I want to live full time. People ask me, what states do I get most of my tours from? And maybe surprisingly or not surprisingly, Florida is one of the top states I get tours from. A lot of people moving to Florida, a lot of people love Florida, but I also hear from folks that, especially from the north, that go down there, maybe a little too hot, too buggy, too long. They miss a change of seasons. One hurricane might get their attention, and the topography's flat. A little boring. So they move halfway back to the north, and that's the Carolinas. We're kind of the moderation between the two extremes. And so, as many of you know, we call them halfback. They move halfway back to the north. Now you have snowbirds. They'll go down to Florida for the good time of Florida's season, and they'll go back up north for the good time of the season up there. But then over time, they get tired of packing up twice a year, and they end up at some time finding a place where they want to settle in. And that again will be oftentimes Greenville area. Well, Greenville itself, you have, if you look on the Visitor Center website, you'll find that Greenville is consistently ranked in the top categories for places to retire, to raise your family, outdoor activities, destination place, romantic getaways, places for singles to live, for remote working. Our international airport has been ranked #1 in the country for airports that host between 2 to 5 million passengers. And Condé Nast Travelers magazine some months ago rated Greenville the friendliest city in the country. Now, I don't know what parameters they use for that designation. I suspect it was an interview they did with me. No, that's not true. They wouldn't know me if they tripped over me. I'm a legend in my own mind.
What are some of the things that, if people are moving here from other places that you found maybe that they don't like about Greenville, they feel like maybe is missing?
Well, people ask me, obviously I'm passionate, I'm positive about Greenville, but mass transit is something that needs to be improved. We do have GreenLink, we do have some electric buses, and there's availability for public transportation, but if you're dependent on it, like coming from a place like New York City, and that's all you use is public transportation, you'll be frustrated with it. It's not as available as you're used to it being. And so a lot of people will use Uber or Lyft or something like that. They really enjoy all the seasons. And I tell them, yeah, it gets hot. That's part of getting all 4 seasons. If it didn't get hot, you wouldn't be experiencing summer, and you wouldn't be getting what you're looking for. So you get a little bit of everything. You don't get you don't get the real extreme heat like you might in Arizona. Typically, you can get up to the mid-90s, and it doesn't often hit triple digits, but it can. In the winter, your average temperatures are mid to high 50s. I think most people can live with that. We average 6 inches of snow a year during the winter, just enough to get a taste for it. In the last couple of years, we really didn't have any snow, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It's green. So people ask me about bugs. Well, yeah, you have bugs. You have, critters. That's just a part of living in a wonderful green area, but nothing that's overwhelming. People ask me, do you have alligators? No, they don't get this far inland, or not that I know of anyway, unless you have a pet that's got escaped.
Mike, besides watching this YouTube channel, besides going on your tour, what else should someone do to really understand Greenville?
Just come and walk around. Talk to people, but be careful. I often tell people, take what others say in context of what they know, how long they've lived here, where they live. But there's value still in asking people how they feel, because if you come down and you eat at one of our restaurants, and we are a foodie town, have over 200 restaurants in downtown Greenville alone. If you eat and talk to people, even talk to the waiter or people sitting next to you, ask them what they think about Greenville. I went to a Greenville Drive game last night, and a couple came up to me that I gave a tour to a year ago. And they say, Mike, remember me? And I kind of did, but I give so many tours, gotta be honest with you, I don't remember everybody. It'll come back to me. But I just jokingly asked them, are we still friends? They said, oh, definitely, because obviously I'm a big advocate for living in Greenville. I told you in '86 I moved here and it was nothing to write home about. And the Lord graciously has allowed me to live here all this time. So I've seen the transformation up close and personal. And now I am just convinced that I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And so if you take my tour, sorry, but that's going to come through. I'll honestly answer your question, but you'll get the full insight what it means to live here.
Talked a lot about a lot of things that are really helpful for people, but if you just had to pick 1 or 2 things that's your absolute favorite thing about living in Greenville, what is it?
The fact that I live within 10 to 15 minutes of everything I need to do around here. Close to the mountains, not far from the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which is right now about 26 miles long, and they're going to continue to extend it. I tell people it's a fascinating sociological phenomenon Wherever the Swamp Rabbit Trail lands, it stimulates development. Now, rails to trails are common throughout the country, but I doubt that there's many that can compare to the impact that our Swamp Rabbit Trail has had on the development of this area. And it's been great to watch. The other thing I appreciate is that our government leaders try to be intentional. They try to follow a master plan. They try to access community input whenever they're having major plans come into place. Now understand, that's never perfect. We're all flawed, but to the extent that they try to do it with the best interests of the community in mind, I'm fully convinced that that's the case.
Well, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed talking with Mike. Mike, of course, is a wealth of knowledge. We 100% recommend that all of our clients go through and do his tour if they're thinking about relocating to Greenville, South Carolina. You're just not going to get that perspective, and you really need to narrow down your focus and know exactly what's going to best fit for you and your situation, and know all the towns really in depth before you start going out and seeing houses, or even deciding if Greenville is going to be a place for you, because we think Greenville is amazing. I personally decided to relocate here as well with my family, and I love it here. I'm super passionate about it. That's why we do this YouTube channel. But we also know that not every place is for every person, and you really need to decide that for yourself. The only way to really get that is to do firsthand research, and doing a tour with Mike is the best step that you can take in my mind. If you're interested in relocating to the upstate, we've already mentioned Mike's tour is absolutely incredible. We've got a special offer here, so reach out to me and all my contact details, and we'll provide you with all the information.